We are currently trying to solve a parasitic worm crisis by breeding and releasing 50 million sterile flies, which is what happens when a pest control strategy begins to resemble a science fiction sequel. Lambert Willingham is here with the edition of the Daily Shear for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2026. Today we observe local governance meeting the ballot box, global markets experiencing a tech-induced shudder, and the political theatre of federal immigration enforcement hitting a judicial wall. The view from Central Texas suggests that even the most advanced technologies and natural refuges require regular, intensive maintenance. This follows the report from yesterday regarding a fatal vehicle collision in Katy, Texas. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has launched a special crash investigation into the incident in which a Tesla Model 3 on autopilot drove into a residential home, killing a 76-year-old woman. The driver assistance system of the vehicle was active during the crash, which prompted federal regulators to intervene. Tesla is already disputing the narrative, indicating that the true status of the vehicle will remain unconfirmed until investigators can fully extract the internal data logs. The insistence of the company on waiting for data logs is a comforting reminder that a black box is the only part of a car that never has to explain its steering choices. In Austin, an amendment to the city charter that would mandate regular independent external audits has been certified for the upcoming November ballot. The Political Action Committee Save Austin now successfully gathered the necessary signatures for the initiative, effectively bypassing previous attempts by city officials to satisfy voters with an internal efficiency review. This measure will allow residents to vote directly on whether independent third-party accountants should inspect the complex budget of the city. The decision to allow external accountants into the books suggests that the internal reviews of the city were about as reassuring as a teenager self-reporting their curfew compliance. More than 3 million Texas hunting and fishing license holders may have had their personal information exposed after a cybersecurity breach. The compromise occurred through an external licensing system vendor utilized by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. State officials are working to close the security loop, though the breach has already affected a massive portion of the outdoor recreational community of the state. It is comforting to know that while the state can track every deer in the county, they are slightly less precise when it comes to keeping your home address out of the hands of offshore servers. The United States Department of Agriculture has confirmed 3 new detections of the flesh-eating New World screwworm in Crockett and Edwards counties, bringing the national count to 15. The infections were discovered in both lambs and calves. In response, state and federal authorities are planning targeted releases of tens of millions of sterile flies to disrupt the breeding cycle of the parasite, while local animal shelters report they are already operating at maximum capacity. As an ovis of particularly refined golden fleece, I find the phrase flesh-eating screwworm to be an unnecessary escalation in the natural order, though releasing millions of sterile flies suggests the department is hoping the insects will simply bore each other to death. Barton Springs Pool reopened on Tuesday morning, restoring its early morning swim at your own risk hours. The natural pool had been closed since June 15th following heavy rains and subsequent flash flooding. Parks and Recreation Aquatics crews spent several days removing flood debris, which included tree branches, aluminum cans and fishing hooks, as well as cleaning the surrounding decks. The removal of fishing hooks and aluminum cans from the water suggests that the natural beauty of the springs is occasionally improved by the sudden, forced absence of human recreation. The global economy is currently discovering that enthusiasm is not a currency accepted by creditors. 2 weeks after its highly anticipated market debut, the retail-driven enthusiasm for SpaceX has encountered a significant correction. The stock declined 16.4% on Monday, erasing approximately $600 billion in market value in a single trading session and falling to the $150 range. The slide brings the stock close to its opening trade price of $150. Meanwhile, the company is attempting to secure $20 billion in investment-grade debt to refinance its high-interest bridge loans before a major shareholder lock-up period expires in August. For the retail investors who purchased the stock at its peak of $225 last week, the concept of reaching orbit has developed a rather steep downward trajectory. Global stock indices experienced a sharp decline on Tuesday, led by a steep correction in semiconductor and artificial intelligence tech stocks. The sell-off began in South Korea, where the benchmark Kospi index dropped 10% following reports that SK Hynix is reducing its planned expansion of high-end artificial intelligence memory chips to focus instead on commodity dynamic random access memory. The shift prompted heavy selling of technology giants Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, with the effects spreading quickly to European markets and depressing United States stock futures. The sudden pivot back to basic memory chips suggests that while the future may belong to artificial intelligence, the current quarterly report still requires actual physical sales of standard electronics. In a shift in economic policy, the United States Treasury Department has announced a temporary 60-day reprieve on Iranian oil and petrochemical sanctions. This decision follows preliminary understandings reached during direct peace talks between the United States and Iran, which were mediated by Pakistan and Qatar in Switzerland. Tehran has immediately dispatched multiple supertankers carrying millions of barrels of crude oil out of the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz, primarily destined for Chinese refineries. The temporary nature of the 60-day waiver suggests that peace is currently being leased on a month-to-month basis, dependent entirely on how quickly the tankers can travel. The United States Senate has passed the 21st Century Road to Housing Act in an 85-5 vote. This bipartisan legislation aims to reduce housing costs by streamlining federal construction permitting rules and restricting private equity and institutional investors from purchasing single-family starter homes. The bill now moves to the House of Representatives, where lawmakers face mounting pressure from voters to address housing affordability ahead of the upcoming midterm elections. Restricting private equity from buying starter homes is a significant step, although it does arrive after several million living rooms have already been added to corporate balance sheets. The national average for regular gasoline has fallen below $4 a gallon, providing modest relief and a slight rebound in consumer sentiment for lower-income households. However, economists warn that broader American demand for fuel may never fully recover. Long-term habits adopted during the recent price spike, such as working from home, driving less, and transitioning to highly efficient or electric vehicles, appear to have permanently reduced refined petroleum consumption. It turns out that when you make a product expensive enough, people will discover that they did not actually need to visit their cousins in Ohio. The national and global stage continues to demonstrate that a well-placed legal ruling or a veteran athlete can occasionally stall the momentum of very large institutions. A federal judge has blocked the plan of the Trump administration to establish a centralized database to verify voter citizenship using the systematic alien verification for entitlement system. Judge Sparkle Suknanan ruled that federal agencies haphazardly combined and repurposed the private data of millions of Americans while relying on information they knew to be unreliable. The ruling prevents states from accessing the database to purge voter rolls, representing a legal setback for the election integrity initiative of the administration. Combining unrelated government databases and hoping for accuracy is a strategy usually reserved for generating spam emails rather than managing constitutional rights. A federal judge has thrown out Department of Justice subpoenas issued to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. The subpoenas were part of a federal investigation into the cooperation of the state with federal immigration enforcement. The judge ruled that the demands were issued for unlawful reasons and were designed primarily to harass and retaliate against Democratic officials who opposed localized immigration crackdowns. The ruling suggests that using federal subpoenas as a retaliatory tool is slightly less effective when a judge is allowed to read the return address. At 38 years of age, Lionel Messi has become the most prolific scorer in World Cup history. Messi scored twice in the victory of Argentina over Austria, which was 2-0, marking his 18th career World Cup goal and surpassing Miroslav Klose of Germany. The performance occurred 2 days before his 39th birthday, ensuring the advancement of Argentina into the knockout stage of the tournament. Achieving a world record at 38 is an impressive feat, particularly for those of us who find that climbing a flight of stairs at that age requires a brief period of reflection. The Milwaukee Bucks have agreed to trade two-time National Basketball Association most valuable player Giannis Antetokounmpo to the Miami Heat. In exchange, the Bucks will receive a substantial package of players, draft picks, and future prospects, ending months of speculation regarding the future of the star in Milwaukee. The trade immediately alters the competitive structure of the Eastern Conference. The trade confirms that loyalty in professional sports is a beautiful concept, provided it can be exchanged for 4 first-round draft picks and a promising backup center. An intense heat wave caused by a massive heat dome has settled over Western Europe, with France recording its hottest night on record. The extreme temperatures have prompted millions of people to seek relief in natural bodies of water, leading to a tragic rise in heat-related drownings. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu confirmed that at least 40 people, primarily young swimmers in unsupervised areas, have drowned since last Thursday. The tragedy underscores the reality that a heat dome does not merely make the afternoon uncomfortable, it turns every unmonitored pond into a hazard. Looking across the ledger today, there is a recurring theme of sudden forced adjustments. From the retail investors watching $600 billion of SpaceX valuation evaporate, to the technology sector realizing that artificial intelligence expansion must wait on commodity hardware, we are seeing the limits of momentum. Even our physical habits have shifted. We are driving less, not because gasoline has permanently vanished, but because we adjusted to the pain of the spike and simply decided not to go back. The systems we build, whether they are databases for voter rolls or automated driving software, are constantly hitting the reality of human error and physical constraints. It seems that the easiest consequence to miss is that we do not actually return to the old baselines once a crisis passes. We simply learn to live with a slightly smaller orbit. That is the news for today. Let us hope the sterile flies find their targets, or at least stay away from my own golden fleece. Lambert Woollingham is signing off. I will be busy checking my own data security just in case the state of Texas thinks I need a fishing license. Until tomorrow,